Yo, it's your boy Ronald West. You're watching Ronald West TV. Like, subscribe, comment. Let's get into the content. So yesterday, President Trump was in Chicago, NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists, association established in 1975 for the advocacy and the pushing and the promotion of Black journalists and representation in mainstream media. So he was interviewed by 3 Black women yesterday, and a lot of people were hitting me up and asking me, Ronald, what you think? What you think? What you think? We didn't get a chance to put the video out, so now we're reacting to the video. So let's see and let's get into the video. Mind you, I don't have any personal opinion about any of these things that they're talking about. I am like, I would say I'm a little biased because I just don't understand how Trump is here with Trump's track record. That's the more thing I'm interested in, is his track record. So that's where I stand there. But both candidates have their pros and cons. But let's just get into the video, and I want to know what you guys think. Hit the comment section, like and subscribe. Let's get the conversation started.
We have a lot to get to, and we do not want to waste any time. So let's bring out the former president of the United States, the Republican nominee for president, former President Donald Trump. Mr. Trump, Rachel Scott, BBC. Thank you. How are you? Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe Black district attorneys. You've attacked Black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they asked are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking Black supporters to vote for you, why should Black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And
all right, so right off the back, being fair is fair. Right off the back, they railroaded him. Right off the back, he was railroaded. So I'm going to see how he bounced back from this railroad, because that is a railroad. Like, let's just be objective. That's a railroad question. You start right off the back, right off the back, no games. How you answer this, bro?
I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the Black population of this country. I've done so much for the Black population of this country. Including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for Black workers and Black entrepreneurs.
Remember, Tim Scott is the guy that walked up on stage and said, hey, Trump, I love you, man.
And she endorsed me. You must really hate her. No, it's a shame. It's a shame. Uh-oh.
I just love you.
No, that's why he's a great politician. That's why he's a great politician. Done so much, and you know, and I say this, historically Black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, you know, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was
Mr. President,
wrong.
I would love if you can answer the question on your rhetoric and why you believe that Black voters should trust you with another 4
I have
years.
been the best president for the Black population since.
Wait, real quick. They have a fact checker there. Did they fact check, or are they going to fact check what he said about the schools? Because if I'm not mistaken, he did say that he raised money for Black schools. Nothing was said. And it's like he's going around the question. But if they're fact checking and that comes back true, is that a true statement? Because he did say that he did something for black schools, right? Let me rewind it, see if I can get it.
Do it with Zoom. Well, it's a very rude so much. And, you know, and I say this, historically black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke. And I saved them and I gave them long-term financing and nobody else was doing it.
Hey, you know, you got to, they fact check and got to find out if that's true. And if that's true, that's a plus point for Donald Trump as far as doing something for the black community. I mean, you let me know. Put it in the comment section. Let me know. I'm trying to be as objective as possible. Now, being objective, I still know that everything that, as far as Trump's track record, that those things are fact. So for me, he still shouldn't be this high and being able to do this. But got to fact check that one thing there.
With another
I have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act.
For you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment.
Are they really fact checking? Because he said he's been a better president than Abraham Lincoln for blacks. It's going to be a hard argument. That's basically what the deal is. It's going to be a really tough argument. Trump has criminal justice reform, economic policies, and funding for HBCUs. So that's a fact. He has done that, right? But then you compare it to Abraham Lincoln, who has the Emancipation Proclamation, the 13th Amendment, and Civil War leadership. And with Trump doing that, whatever he did, he also simultaneously wanted to take away the Healthcare Act that was affecting black communities the most, because black communities needed that more than other communities at that particular time. So one could argue that. So I guess they didn't fact check it, or if they did fact check it, it must have came back correct.
To work in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
Let me just ask a follow-up, sir, and then we'll move on to other questions here. Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a
literally
definition
the words.
then. Would you give me a definition of that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question, a very direct question.
Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
Oh man. So I looked up those claims with the Kamala Harris and the black thing. First of all, she went to an HBU, right? So that's where she graduated from, an HBU, historical black university. And also she won some awards where she was listed on black magazines and things of that nature back in the day. I looked these things up. So that's not true. You know, that's not true. To accept the awards, the black people already, she's a black person. Like, this is, all of those claims just don't make any sense. When I look it up, I see that she's won awards and black magazines. So why would you be in a black magazine if you're not black? So black people already have accepted her as being black before this presidency stuff came about. So all of those claims are false as far as my research is concerned.
Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She is always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that she is? I think
somebody should look into that too when you ask. Continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans
really don't
have said?
know. I mean, I really don't know. Could be. There are some, and there are plenty. I know this lady right over there, Harris, is a fantastic person who just interviewed me at length. And we had a great interview, I think, and I heard you got very good ratings on that.
Well, you told me it was the longest one of your life, so we had a good discussion. Look, I want to talk about why you're here today. I mean, it is not lost.
He's basically saying he respects whoever this lady is that's about to talk. He respects the hell out of her. as a black person. I guess that's what that's supposed to mean. And that's interesting. I saw that the respect was just given to this young lady, big time. So let's see.
On us how divided we are as a country. And as you were coming today, we really got to see that we are divided along the lines of race, along the lines of gender. And there is this question of, in this moment where we are, why come here? What is your message today?
My message is to stop people from invading our country that are taking, frankly, a lot of problems with it. But one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this room I know and I have great respect for, a lot of the journalists in this room are black. I will tell you that coming
from just the way he says it, this sounds cringe, yo. It sounds cringe. I knew this masonry guy. He was a white guy. He always referred to everybody that worked with him as their nationality. He's like, yeah, Ron, remember that Puerto Rican I had working for me? Yeah, he did a pretty good job. And it's like, that sounds cringe. That sounds cringe. He says something like, Ron, I got 2 black guys in the back working for me. They're doing pretty good. It's like, what are these people's names? Stop referring to people by their heritage. It just feels funny. I got 2 Mexicans in the back. You know, I got 2 Guatemalans. This doesn't sound right. You know, I hired 3 Chinese. It doesn't sound right. What are these people's names? And usually people that operate like that, they're the most prejudiced people, man.
From the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a black job, sir?
A black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is. Anybody that has a job.
All right.
And
Mr. President,
they're taking the employment away from black people. They're coming in, they're invading. It's an invasion of millions of people, probably 15, 16, 17 million people. I have a feeling it's much more than that. And everybody's been seeing what's happened. The first group of people, the black population, is affected most by that. And Kamala is allowing it to happen. She's the border czar. She's the worst border czar in the history of the world. There's never been a border czar like this. She's never even essentially been. She said she was there once, but not the right part of the border. So she was a border czar. She's done a horrible job. These people are coming into our country, and they're taking black jobs and Hispanic jobs. And frankly, they're taking union jobs. Unions are being very badly affected by all of the millions of people that are pouring into our country. And one thing,
just for, we talk about black jobs, we talk about Spanish jobs or Latin jobs. What are the white jobs? And that's the thing that's not being talked about. What are the white jobs? Because Donald Trump's whole thing is MAGA, make America great again, right? At what point was America great for, don't even tell me there was any point that it was great for black people, right? It may have gotten a little better, marginally better, but it has never been great at any point for black people. The same probably can be said, but not to the degree. The same can be said for Latin and all the rest of the minorities. When has it been great for, right? America's only been great for white individuals, right? White people. It's only been great for white people. So Trump's real message is make America white again. That's the real message. And I wish he had enough balls, especially as straightforward as Trump is. And that's the thing that people like him the most for being straightforward. And yes, this is comedy right here, right? As straightforward as he is, his message isn't straightforward. Make America great again America was only great for one group of people, and that was white people, right? So his message should be make America white again. That's the message. So, while you people are running and advocating for him, I believe that's his real message. And like I said, I don't even have a horse in the game. I just like looking at this thing objectively as possible. Let's get back to the video.
As we discussed, many of these people are coming in from mental institutions, from prisons, from jails. They're gang members in other countries. Other countries are setting loose their prisoners. They're opening up their prisons and their mental institutions, and they're taking their bad people, drug dealers, gang members, and they're bringing them into the United States. And by the way, their crime rate is going down, and our crime rate is going to be a disaster.
Mr. President, I want to get into how you address some of the issues with black communities. And I say that plural because we live in communities of color that are different. We're not all the same. We don't vote the same. We don't think the same.
True.
It's not monolithic. So as you come here today, I want to talk about something that bursts, and this is the weight of the inflation on this country right now. The nonprofit Money Management International recently released data from its mid-year analysis that we have found a 52% rise in people who are seeking counseling for being in credit debt. They're paying for food that is sky high on their credit cards, and now they can't pay that off. The credit counseling nonprofit MMI, as I said, is saying now that they've seen surges that they haven't seen since we were in a pandemic of people in financial trouble. Much of that falls on the shoulders of single moms, single Black moms, when you look statistically. Yeah. How do you turn it around? What's your plan for the Black community when it comes to money?
So, first of all, it's very hard to hear you for whatever reason because of the fact that they have bad equipment, because I guess, this woman was unable to get the right equipment. But it's very hard for me to hear you, but I can hear every other word. It's very difficult, actually. But so I don't know if they can fix it or do something with it, but I'll do the best I can with it. The inflation is absolutely destroying our middle class, our working class, virtually every class. Inflation is a disaster in our country. Inflation is a country buster. It breaks every country. And we had, in my opinion, the worst inflation we've had. They say it's 58 years, but I think it's much more than that. It's been devastating. And if you just take a look at a lot of things they don't include, like interest rates. Interest rates went from 2.4% to 10%, and you can't get the money. People can't buy houses. They no longer have the American dream. Young people, young Black people, they don't have the American dream anymore. They can't buy a house. They can't borrow the money because of the cost of the money. They can't buy because of the cost of housing, because of the cost to build it, because of inflation. Inflation is a disaster, and it's destroying our country, and it's destroying the Black community probably as much or more than any.
What's your plan?
You know what we have to do? We have to bring down the cost of energy, and that's going to bring down the cost of inflation. This was all started with a bad energy policy by Joe Biden. By the way,
but that's what he talked about, the fracking. He wants to be fracking. That means he wants to drill holes in the ground and get some energy from the ground, some oil, so we don't have to outsource and get that from other places, saving us money, saving on inflation and different things like that. And Kamala's not for the fracking. That's what he's alluding to probably right now.
Just, if I might, I was running against a man named Biden. You probably saw that. And he was losing very badly in the polls. And then he had a rather bad debate. I would say it was a bad debate. I would say it was one of the worst debates in history. And his poll numbers crashed. And instead of saying, let's keep going and maybe something happens the other way, they said, oh, we're going to replace him. Let's just replace him. That's like you're in a fight. A prize fighter's in a fight. He's not doing what you say, let's bring in another fighter. So our whole campaign was steered toward him. And now we have to steer it toward him. But ultimately, it's the same because they have bad policy. They have policies of open borders, unbelievable open borders, horrible energy policies. They want to get rid of, as you say, gasoline in cars. They want to get rid of oil. They want to get rid of efficient heating.
Mr. President.
Environmentally, what they're doing is killing our country. They're absolutely destroying our country. But the inflation is the thing that's hurting the Black worker, the Black population, and every other population within our country. Inflation is the worst it's been, I think, in over 100 years. And they'll fact check it. They'll say it's only 58. Whatever it may be, they don't add all the numbers. They don't add the really bad numbers, and you can check that too. But inflation, Harris, is absolutely destroying this country and the people in our country. Yes,
Mr. President, can I ask you another question
Yes,
that is also impacting Black Americans?
And that's very clear now. Good.
I'm sorry?
It's very clear. I hear you.
Okay. So Sonia Massey, someone from Illinois, an unarmed Black woman, was shot the other day in her home by a deputy sheriff. The deputy has since been charged with murder. You've said police would get immunity from prosecution if you win. Why should someone like that officer have immunity, in your opinion?
Immunity?
Immunity.
I don't know the exact case, but I saw something, and it didn't look good to me. It didn't look good to me. Are you talking with the water? right?
Yeah, well, police.
It didn't
I mean,
look-
police unions are not backing this person either.
Okay.
But
And
again, why would?
they're going to be charging the officer? I guess they're charging the officer.
So why should he receive immunity?
Well, he might not. I mean, it depends. It depends on what happens. I'm talking about people that are much different cases than that. We need people to protect ourselves. And by the way, in Chicago, as an example, a few weeks ago, July 4th weekend, they had 117 shootings and 17 deaths. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. We need to have our police officers have the respect and dignity back. In this particular case, I saw something that didn't look good to me. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
So can you get a little more specific back to the immunity question? Who would make those
Well, right
distinct?
now,
So basically, he's saying for that case, he saw that cop is going to jail. Trump just said it right there. He didn't like that. He didn't think it was good at all. So let's not skip over and gloss over the fact that he thinks that was wrong. Everybody think that's wrong. That's subjective. So at least he's correct that way. You know, do cops need more respect? You know, put that in the comment section. Should there be a proper etiquette when it comes to dealing with cops and cops vice versa? Yes, it should be something changed. Things need to be different. You know, there should be some more reform when it comes to blacks in particular, as far as how to deal with blacks. There should be certain protections for blacks when it comes to like being pulled over, and when it comes to any interaction with the police. They gotta really talk about that. That's important. But it looks like here he understands that was the wrongful shooting and money's going to be going to jail.
now for the most part, people are protected by their unions, by their police unions, or by their police departments. But I'm saying if I felt, or if a group of people would feel that somebody was being unfairly prosecuted because the person did a good job maybe with crime or made a mistake, an innocent mistake. There's a big difference between being a bad person and making an innocent mistake. But if somebody made an innocent mistake, I would want to help that person.
What would those exceptions be? What would determine
You
an
go
innocent
after
mistake?
somebody and it's a very close call and it's very dangerous. And, you know, they have the policeman's life and woman is a very difficult thing because sometimes you have less than a second to make a, life and death decision. And sometimes very bad decisions are made. They're not made from an evil standpoint, but they're made from the standpoint of they made a mistake.
So I want to follow up really quickly.
I understand what he's saying here. But at the same time, like I said, there has to be protections for black individuals because black people seem to have this situation and these cases happen more often than anybody else. So just like you have protections for LGBTQ and gays when it comes to certain things, or the bathroom stuff where you can't figure out how you're going to do that, there needs to be certain protections for black individuals when it comes to law enforcement and interactions with law enforcement, so we can prevent these things from happening. That needs to happen. But I do understand where he was coming from. There are situations where it's a close call, but the problem is it's a close call with the black individual always in these situations. If you had some protocol or some type of protections in these situations, that'd probably like eliminate or mitigate a lot of the problems that we've been having.
I find it interesting because you do talk about reining in prosecutors, especially when it comes to prosecutors that are prosecuting you. Why doesn't that skepticism apply to law enforcement?
Well, I've been prosecuted because I'm a political opponent of two people that have weaponized our justice system. I've been prosecuted. I just won the big case in Florida. Everyone said that was the biggest case. That was the most difficult case. And I just won it. Now, Biden has a similar case, except much worse. I was protected under the Presidential Records Act. Biden wasn't, because he wasn't president at the time. And he had 50 years worth of documents. And they ruled that he was incompetent, and therefore he shouldn't stand trial. And I said, isn't that something? He's incompetent and he can't stand trial. And yet he can be president. Isn't that nice?
Mr. President,
but they released him on the basis that he was in.
And you have all of these allegations against you, over 20, and you can be president? That's I don't understand how people say certain things and just come out their mouth and say certain things when they know they have the exact problem or an opposite problem or a problem, period. They say, but people with glass houses shouldn't throw stones. It's one of those things. It's one thing when somebody says something, they don't realize like, yo, bro, you got some issues here too. You know, you do have a glass house, you know, especially when it comes to this situation. That's one thing we don't know. But when you clearly know you have a glass house and you're throwing stones, it's irrational to me. Because somebody can throw a stone right back at your house because it's so fragile.
Incompetent. They said he had no memory and he was a nice old guy, but he had no memory. And so, therefore, we're not going to prosecute him. I won the case and it got very little publicity. I didn't notice ABC doing any publicity on it, George.
We covered you extensively, sir. I'd love to move over on to
I
different
didn't notice you
now.
do any publicity on it at all. I won the case, the biggest case. This is an attack on a political opponent. I have another one where I have a hostile judge.
We have you for a limited time, sir. I'd love to move on to different topics.
Excuse you. You're the one that held me up for 35 minutes, just so you understand.
If we can move on now to the state of the race, sir, I want to get back to the campaign. Senator J.D. Vance is your running mate. He's had a lot of controversy lately, and I want to read you a few things that he has said in the past. He said the Democrats running the country are a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices they've made. And so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. He's not talking here about how great it is to be a parent. He's attacking what he says are the choices people are making to not have children. Did you know that he had these views about people who do not have children before you picked him to be your running mate? And do you agree with him?
No, I know this. He is very family oriented and he thinks family is a great thing. That doesn't mean he thinks that if you don't have a family, it's not. I know people with families. I know people with great families. I know people with very troubled families. And I also know people with no families. They didn't meet the right person. Things happen. You go through life, you don't meet the right person.
But he's not just talking about families here. He also says that people that don't have children should get less votes than those that do.
I'm just speaking for myself.
Is that your campaign
I think
position?
I'm speaking for him too. He strongly believes in family, but I know people with great families. I know people with not great families that don't have a family. And the people without the family are far better. They're superior in many cases, okay? He's not saying they're not. What he's saying is that he thinks the family experience is a very important thing. It's a very good thing. But that doesn't mean that if you grow up and you grow older and you don't meet somebody that would be wonderful to meet and would have been good, that that's a bad thing. He's not saying that. My interpretation, you'll have to ask him actually, but my interpretation is he's strongly family oriented, but that doesn't mean if you don't have a family, there's something wrong with it.
Just one last point and then we'll move on. Just one of the bedrock principles of American life is one person, one vote. Senator J.D. Vance has suggested that someone who has children should have more votes than a person who does not have children. I just want to be clear here. Is that the position of your campaign?
Well, no, but it's not something I have ever heard before. I can tell you this. Right now, you have illegal aliens coming into our country, many from prisons and many from mental institutions, and they want to give them votes. I don't think they should have votes. They came into our country illegally, and they're taking the vote away from all of the people in this room that have been here a long time, that have worked hard, that in...
She just said only American citizens are allowed to vote. I thought that also when they were saying that. I think I've heard Elon Musk when he was getting interviewed by Don Lemon. And Elon Musk mentioned that. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't think illegals could just come here and vote. I thought this sounds crazy. I don't think they could come here and vote. I don't think they just come here and get a job and just work like that. So a lot of this stuff has to be always has to be fact checked. They have a fact checker there. So that's why this event is kind of cool. But I like the fact that Donald Trump did show up and like take this, like, because they definitely were here to railroad him, and they railroaded him. And I think he's so far handled himself pretty well. I would like to see something like this on a Kamala end, when Kamala gets interviewed by 3 people and she has to like be in a hot seat necessarily, and then see what happens then. I think that'd be interesting. Like I said, all this would be great for television. But what I'm getting out of here, man, is old man Trump talking. He talks some sense, just like some racists do. They have some points where they talk sense. You know, they're not totally crazy, but he's definitely rooted in being a racist. But I mean, the comedy of this is this. Oh my God, this is first take stuff. This is first take stuff. Being a racist, Trump would tell you that he believes that the white race is superior, and that's just all. You know, I don't think he's going to be able to get in office from all of this rhetoric. This video right here should show you, like, you know, this guy's a polarizing figure, And for some people, he could be fun. Some people can't stand him because they just feel like he's racist. That's it. They're done. But others that could see past that just for a split second and see that, yeah, some of the stuff he says makes sense. I can see the how he thought this through as far as some of his policies. And I want Kamala to do an interview, something similar to this, and so we can compare the two. But I think this was pretty good that he went here to do this. This was tough for him. All right, so basically see what he's saying. He hasn't said anything he hasn't said before. Like, he says the same thing all the time over and over again. I thought this was a pretty tough interview for him, and he held his own. It was pretty good. I want to see Kamala in the same type of atmosphere where obviously there's 3 people that are against her that are asking her questions. The one in the blue, yeah, she came on kind of strong and railroaded them in the beginning. That's just me being fair. But, you know, tell me what you think in the comment section below. I thought this was a pretty interesting interview from Trump. I thought he held his own, man. Let me know what you think.